Once upon a time, in the heart of ancient Athens, a child was born into a noble lineage, destined to change the course of Western thought. His name was Plato, and though the world he entered was one of political turbulence and war, his mind soared beyond the realm of human strife, reaching for the eternal truths that lay beyond the veil of mere existence. Plato's journey began around 428 BC, a time when Athens was basking in the fading glow of its golden age. His father, Ariston, passed away while Plato was still a child, and his mother, Perictione, remarried a statesman named Pyrilampes. As he grew, so did the turmoil around him. The Peloponnesian War raged, shaping his perception of governance, power, and justice. Among his early mentors was the philosopher Cratylus, who introduced him to the ideas that would later form the foundation of his own grand philosophical inquiries. But it was Socrates, the ever-questioning, ever-challenging seeker of truth, who truly ignited the fire in young Plato's soul. Socrates was not merely a teacher, but a force of nature, a man who questioned everything, leaving no assumption unexamined. To the Athenian elite, he was a dangerous provocateur. To Plato, he was a guide into the depths of wisdom itself. But the city of Athens did not share Plato's admiration. In a trial that would echo through the ages, Socrates was condemned to death, accused of corrupting the youth and defying the gods. Plato watched as his mentor willingly drank the hemlock, a martyr to the unrelenting pursuit of truth. Disillusioned, Plato left Athens and embarked on a 12-year odyssey across the lands of Egypt, Sicily, and Italy. Among the followers of Pythagoras, he discovered a mystical connection between numbers and the cosmos. He crossed paths with philosophers whose ideas would refine his own, absorbing the wisdom of the East and the West. But Athens called him home, and so, in a grove dedicated to the hero Academus, he founded a school that would become legendary, the P Academy, perhaps the first institution of higher learning the world had ever seen. Here, young minds from across Greece gathered to sit at the feet of the master. Among them was a youth named Aristotle, whose own name would one day rival his teacher's in fame. Plato's works were dialogues, woven with the voice of Socrates, as if the old master still whispered his teachings from beyond the grave. His philosophical inquiries spanned metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, and political theory, forming a foundation for all future Western thought. In the Republic, he envisioned a world ruled not by the whims of the masses, but by the wisdom of a philosopher king. Justice, he argued, was the harmony of a well-ordered soul and a well-ordered state, each divided into three distinct parts: rulers guided by wisdom, auxiliaries driven by courage, and producers motivated by desire. This tripartite structure mirrored the soul itself, where reason must govern over spirit and appetite. He spoke of the theory of forms, a profound idea that the physical world was but a mere shadow of a higher, eternal reality. The perfect essence of all things, beauty, justice, love, existed beyond human perception, and what we experience is only an imperfect reflection of these ideal forms. His famous allegory of the cave painted a haunting image: humanity, chained in darkness, mistaking shadows for reality, while the enlightened few emerged into the dazzling light of true knowledge. Only those willing to ascend beyond their comfortable ignorance could glimpse the forms, the ultimate realities that lay beyond mere appearances. His dialogues evolved, shifting from Socratic questioning to profound philosophical expositions. In Symposium, he mused on the nature of love, declaring that the highest form of desire was not for fleeting passion, but for the eternal pursuit of wisdom. Love, he argued, was a ladder, beginning with physical attraction, but ascending toward an appreciation of pure, unchanging beauty, and ultimately the love of wisdom itself. In Meno, he suggested that learning was not acquisition, but recollection, as if the soul carried within it the echoes of truths long forgotten. Through a simple dialogue with an uneducated slave, Socrates demonstrated how innate knowledge of geometry could be drawn out, reinforcing Plato's belief in the immortality and pre-existence of the soul. Timaeus delved into cosmology, presenting a universe structured by divine reason. He described a world created from perfect geometric shapes, the Platonic solids, that formed the very fabric of existence. The cosmos, he believed, was the product of a rational and benevolent creator, the demiurge, who imposed mathematical order upon chaos. As he aged, his ideals tempered. In Laws, his final work, he conceded that governance required not just wisdom, but an understanding of history and human nature. Even the philosopher king, it seemed, could not wholly mold the world into perfection. He proposed a mixed constitution, blending monarchy, oligarchy, and democracy, acknowledging the necessity of law as a guiding force for even the wisest rulers. Plato breathed his last in Athens, perhaps within the very academy he had built. Some say that as he lay on his deathbed, he called for a flute player to perform, his fingers tapping the rhythm one final time before slipping into eternity. His academy endured for centuries, only to be silenced when Roman forces razed Athens in 86 BC. But Plato's ideas could not be buried. Though overshadowed for a time by Aristotle in the Christian West, his works found new life in the Renaissance, when scholars rediscovered his inquiries into logic, justice, and the nature of existence. Poets of the 19th century, like Wordsworth and Shelley, found solace in his words, drawn to his vision of a world beyond mere appearances. Today, his legacy whispers through the corridors of philosophy, echoed in the voices of those who still ponder the nature of truth, beauty, and the eternal struggle between ignorance and enlightenment. And perhaps somewhere beyond the limits of this world, in the realm of forms, Plato still contemplates, still questions, still seeks the perfect essence of wisdom itself. Some famous quotes from Plato: "Wise men speak because they have something to say. Fools because they have to say something. The greatest wealth is to live content with little. Courage is knowing what not to fear. An empty vessel makes the loudest sound, so they that have the least wit are the greatest babblers. The measure of a man is what he does with power. Ignorance the root and stem of all evil. Good actions give strength to ourselves and inspire good actions in others. Reality is created by the mind. We can change our reality by changing our mind. The first and best victory is to conquer self. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Those who tell the stories also rule society. You can discover more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Love is a serious mental disease. At the touch of love, everyone becomes a poet. Justice means minding your own business and not meddling with other men's concerns. There are three classes of men: lovers of wisdom, lovers of honor, and lovers of gain. He who commits injustice and does not repent is the most miserable. The first and best victory is to conquer self. The only true wisdom is in knowing. You know nothing. You can discover more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation. Those who tell the stories also rule society. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Love is a serious mental disease. At the touch of love, everyone becomes a poet. Justice means minding your own business and not meddling with other men's concerns. There are three classes of men: lovers of wisdom, lovers of honor, and lovers of gain. He who commits injustice and does not repent is the most miserable. Wise men speak because they have something to say. Fools because they have to say something. Courage is knowing what not to fear. The measure of a man is what he does with power. Ignorance, the root and stem of all evil. Good actions give strength to ourselves and inspire good actions in others. Reality is created by the mind. We can change our reality by changing our mind. An empty vessel makes the loudest sound, so they that have the least wit are the greatest babblers. The greatest wealth is to live content with little. The soul takes on an immortal journey. Time is the most valuable thing a man can spend. 2. Love is to suffer. To avoid suffering, one must not love. In politics, we are all the slaves of public opinion. Knowledge which is acquired under compulsion obtains no hold on the mind. The greatest penalty of evil is not that it is punished, but that it is practiced. One of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. We can easily see the flaws of others, but to see our own faults takes great effort. There are two things a person should never be angry at: what they can help and what they cannot. A friend is one soul in two bodies. The measure of a man is what he does with power. A tyrant in the best case is merely a coward. The truth is not always the same as the majority decision. Philosophy begins in wonder. The philosopher is not a citizen of any state, but a citizen of the world. Those who are able to see beyond the shadows and lies of their culture will never be understood, let alone believed, by the masses. Necessity is the mother of invention. You don't have to be a master to know that something is wrong with the world. No one is free who has not obtained the empire of himself. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Rhetoric is the art of ruling the minds of men. All men are, by nature, equal, made all by one workman. No man should bring children into the world who is unwilling to persevere to the end in their nature and education. The best way to avoid criticism is to do nothing, say nothing, and be nothing. The unexamined life is not worth living. Knowledge becomes evil if the aim be not virtuous. Love is the joy of the good, the wonder of the wise, the amazement of the gods. The greatest mistake you can make in life is to be continually fearing you will make one. Everything that is said by someone, but not everything said is true. There is no harm in repeating a good thing. A good decision is based on knowledge and not on numbers. I am the wisest man alive, for I know one thing, and that is that I know nothing. It is not living that matters, but living rightly. The beginning is the most important part of the work. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Bad men live that they may eat and drink, whereas good men eat and drink that they may live. Knowledge without justice ought to be called cunning rather than wisdom. A house that has a library in it has a soul. The truth is always the truth, whether it is acknowledged or not. All is flux, nothing stays still. Only the dead have seen the end of war. There is no harm in taking pride in your work. A true lover of knowledge must be more inclined to believe in things he does not know than to rely upon what he knows. Nothing in the affairs of men is worthy of anger. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Knowledge is the food of the soul. The city is the soul writ large. A man is a poor soul who has not learned to govern himself. No one can harm you unless you allow it. Time, the devourer of all things, comes to end the world. The highest form of love is the love for wisdom. Love is the pursuit of the good. No man is truly free who is the slave of his passions. The way to know a true philosopher is to understand the consequences of their thoughts. Knowledge is a beautiful thing, but a greater beauty lies in the practice of what we know. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. An individual's greatest asset is their own mind. A state is a body of people who by mutual consent have agreed to be governed. A man who is in love with wisdom cannot easily be deceived. The most important part of education is the ability to ask good questions. It is only the dead who are at peace. A ruler who governs justly has no need to fear the consequences of his rule. Wise men know that knowledge of the self is the true form of wisdom. True love is the search for the good in another person. The greatest achievement is to be able to think and act with clarity. It is not what we do, but how we do it that matters. Self-control is the key to happiness. We are all prisoners of our own minds. The greatest wealth is to be content with little. The purpose of life is not to be happy, but to be good. The foundation of all knowledge is the ability to question. Nothing is more important than the search for truth. Life is an opportunity to live, not just to exist. The only limit to our realization of tomorrow is our doubts of today. The unexamined life is not worth living. In order to be a good person, one must first be a good student of life. True wisdom is knowing that we know nothing. To be a philosopher is to love the truth above all else. What is honored in a country will be cultivated there. True beauty is found in the love of wisdom. He who does not understand the past is doomed to repeat it.